It's 115 degrees. There's a 40-mile-an-hour wind into your face. You feel like you're going backwards. I'm looking ahead, and these black clouds, as far as you can see. And then I'm seeing the lightning striking the ground ahead of me. You've got nowhere to go. There is no cover. There's no shelter. There's no houses, nothing. Just you, your bike, the ground, and the elements. The wind picks up. It starts to hail, rain like I've never seen. And then this pickup truck comes from nowhere. And this guy winds his window down. And he said, follow me. And they invite a complete stranger into their hut. They feed me, give me water and coffee.
How this focal point benefits Billy's life.
It renewed my faith in humanity. People giving to you, giving to complete strangers.
Simon, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on whatever the name of this podcast is.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, truly.
Yeah. So we met, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I say so.
Yeah, and I've been really, leaning on some of our conversations, in fatherhood, in business, in expectations, in growth. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me is you making a pivot professionally and just wanting to be present and living life. So I've used that as almost a guiding star too, as I'm going through things as a father as well, and business and things like that. I'd like to start from the beginning and talk about where you were and what made you really pivot and change the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely. So very, very quickly, just as a recap, I grew up in the UK, became an engineer, didn't really think that I could do anything else in life. My father was an engineer, my uncles, my grandfather. So I went to college and became an engineer. Then I went to work for a motor company in Europe, in Spain, Germany, then back to the UK. And then in 2000, I came to the US. I came to Michigan and I was working in Dearborn. Fast forward, 2002. I'd already got one son, Harry, and then Jane became pregnant with twins, of all things. And they were born on the 4th of July. So on the 4th of July, they got their independence. Yeah, and from us. It was supposed to be a day of great celebration.
Yeah.
And it was very, very momentarily. So on the 4th of July, Mia was born. And then some hours later, Billy was born with complications. So Billy was oxygen deprived in the birthing canal and consequently had extensive brain damage to his frontal lobes. Spent the first month of his life in the intensive care unit at the University of Michigan Hospital. I spent a month with Billy and Jane. We had no family here, so Jane, Harry, and Mia were at home. On the 4th week, it was a Friday, Billy was going to have an MRI. And I was going to call his neurologist, Dr. Lieber, and tell him not to bother doing the MRI because it didn't matter. Nothing they were going to tell us was going to change the outcome. We weren't dealing with a broken bone. It wasn't a case of, okay, we're going to do surgery, we're going to put some pins, and that's some physiotherapy, everything's going to be great. It wasn't. So I went in that day and I met with Dr. Lieber and his team, and I was told, Billy's got extensive brain damage. The only thing he's ever going to have in common with his twin sister was the fact that they were born on the same day. So I had to drive home and tell my wife. So it's a 30-minute drive from Ann Arbor back to Northville. And you go in and tell your wife that one of your 3 children has got extensive brain damage. And chances are he will never speak. And the only thing he has in common with his twin sister is the fact they're born on the same day. So for me, without knowing it, that was the beginning of the end of my life, my family. So not knowing really what to do, I poured everything I had into earning more money to try to buy happiness, to buy my family's happiness. So I worked harder, harder and harder. And it wasn't working. So then I bought the bigger house. So I thought, big house, that's got to do it. You know, we get bigger house, we're going to be happier as a family unit.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't working. And when you have a special needs child, you, as a family unit, you divide and conquer. So one of you, whether it be Jane or I, will stay at home and look after Billy, and the other will go to sporting events and school events. And it's called dividing and conquering. And it's very true. But it divided and conquered our marriage. So still searching for something, I threw myself into endurance events.
Yeah.
I've never done endurance events in my life. So I started off with half marathons, and then marathons, and then half Ironman, and then Ironman. Seeking validation, seeking worth, trying to find worth in this world. And every finish line, every medal that I threw in a shoebox and kept in a cupboard meant nothing to me. I still didn't feel worthy. So I turned to alcohol and became an alcoholic to numb the pain of failure, the pain of not feeling worthy. You know, my marriage was through, and so was I. And this went on for many, many years, and you've got a big house, and it's great because you can live quite separately in that big house. You know, you can each have your own little corner.
Yeah.
And then in 2002, I went to, 2002, I saw on LinkedIn this summit. It's called the Purpose Summit at Notre Dame University. And I saw all the people, CEOs, CFOs, and I thought, this is perfect. Yeah. I need to go to this. You know, I can expand my business network. I can make more money. This can be my revival. I can come back and I can do everything I need to do for my family. So the following year, 2023, I went to the summit, and it's at Notre Dame University, and I drove down the boulevard to go there, and in the distance, there's a gold basilica.
Yeah.
And something stood in me momentarily. I parked up, I went to the hotel, got changed, then went to 2 keynotes that day. And pretty good, nothing earth-shattering. You know. Then went back to the hotel, I was having drinks in the bar, and then dinner. And the maitre d' came up and said, are we with the Purpose Summit? And I said, yes. She said, there's a gentleman in the lobby, and he was wondering if he could join you. I was like, I didn't really want. I mean, I was having fun. I was enjoying the conversation with my friend. But I felt, you know, in the spirit of the summit, you're sure. So anyway, this gentleman joined us. His name was Harry Smith. And we spoke, and we had a fairly good evening, and we said our good nights. Next day, I went to a number of keynotes. And then I was about to leave at the end of the day and go to the field and then onto the ice arena. And I heard my name called. And I turned, and it was Harry. And he introduced me to this gentleman called Roger Norberg. And no sooner he'd introduced me, Harry was gone, he saw on a face. Yeah. And Roger said, why are you here? And I couldn't bring myself to say I was here to meet CEOs and CFOs and further my business network. So I said, I don't know. I don't know anymore. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, can I pray for you? I said, yes. And he prayed, but he prayed out loud. And I remember looking around, hoping that nobody would hear. Out of embarrassment that somebody's praying over me. Nobody ever prayed over me in their whole life. So he prayed, and I thanked him at the end. I didn't know what to say, so I said, oh, thank you. And I left, and I went to the field, and then I went on to the ice arena. And at the ice arena, I met these 2 ladies, Corinne Forrest, and Michelle Shum. And we talked all evening. And then we were walking back to the hotel, and Michelle said, Simon, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, nothing. She said, do you want to go for a walk? I said, yes. So, got up the next morning, went down to the lobby, and there was Michelle, but she was with some other people. So off we went. We walked out to the basilica, then onto the pond, and this gentleman, he got started walking alongside me. His name was Chris Steely. And he said, Simon, what's your story? I said, I haven't got one. He said, yeah, everyone's got a story. What's yours? I said, no. And he left it there. So Notre Dame University has a grotto very similar to Bourges in France. And he said, Simon, why don't you go and light a candle? So I did. I went into the grotto, lit a candle, and I started to cry. And I felt embarrassed. And I left as quickly as I possibly could. Went back to my hotel room. And I said to myself in the room, I said, this is really weird. You know, there's a lot of strange things happening here and I don't understand it. So I just said, okay, there are 2 keynote speakers today. Go and listen to them and then just get out of here as fast as you can. So I did. So the first was an executive from Chick-fil-A. Pretty interesting. You know, I feel like they've got a good business model. So I found it interesting. Now, the next one, Nick Vujicic. He's an Australian immigrant. He's got no arms and legs. And he's on the stage. They've got a table on top of the stage with a tablecloth, and Nick's standing on this stage. And he starts talking about growing up in Australia. You know, immigrant, born without any arms and legs. And he talks about wanting to kill himself when he was 12 years of age. How does someone without any arms and legs kill themselves? So he would decide he was going to drown himself in the bath. But he couldn't do it. Couldn't do it to his parents. And because he loved them so much and they loved him. So he didn't. Now every day Nick would go to school and this janitor would come to him every day and say, Nicholas, you've got a story. You need to tell it. He said, I don't have a story. I said, you do. Every day the janitor would say the same thing. And eventually he said, okay. So the janitor said, I'm going to pick you up on Friday. I'm going to take you to my church. And I want you to tell your story. So he took him to his church. There were 4 people there. And he started talking and this girl started to cry. And she came up to him and hugged him. It was at that moment he realized, and he had a story. And he said, I was sitting in a room of 700 people. There's one person right now in this room, and there's an ember burning in your heart, and you know who you are. And at that moment, I was the only person in that group other than Nicholas. You know? And he finished talking, and I wanted to speak to him so badly. But there was a massive line of people. Yeah. So I left. Went back to my hotel room. Got changed. Packed up. Checked out of the hotel. And as I was coming out of the hotel, who was coming towards me in his wheelchair with his assistant, Gio, pushing it? But Nicholas. And I walked up to him and I said, I'm that guy. He said, I'm the guy with the ember burning in my heart. And he said, do you want a hug? I said, yes, I do. So I knelt down. I put my head on his shoulder. He leans in with his head and hugs me with his head. And he prayed out loud again. But this time, I was prepared for it and I wanted it. Yeah. So we said our goodbyes. I drove back from Notre Dame University. I didn't call anybody. I didn't listen to any music, but just myself in the car. Now I got back and the next day I phoned my brother in the UK, James. James is a pastor. And he said, how was the summit? Because I've told him about it before. And I explained to him what happened. And he started to laugh. I said, what's funny? He said, Simon, he said, I was hoping and praying that you would meet somebody far more significant than CEOs and CFOs at Notre Dame University and the Purpose Summit. The next month and a half was the worst month of my life, or months of my life. My alcoholism went to the worst levels. And I didn't think that was even possible. I mean, I already thought I was at rock bottom. But no, apparently I wasn't. And then this one day, it was a Sunday morning, I woke up and he said, well, I'm trying nothing else. Let's go to church. So I got up and I got dressed and I went to church. And I got elect on purpose because I wanted to be at the back. And then at the first moment of any trouble, I could just leave straight away. So I walked in and this gentleman greeted me and he took me straight to the front. And there's a chair right at the front waiting for me. And I sat there. So I went for 3 weeks. And I found faith, but not quite as you would imagine it. For the first time in my life, I found faith and belief in myself. I learned to love myself. Truly love myself. I don't mean vanity. I don't mean looking in the mirror. I mean love what was inside of me. And I realized that I was worthy. So on July 22nd, 2023, I stopped drinking. On January 1st, 2024, I quit work. I quit my corporate job. And I have a special needs son, as I've already mentioned, Billy. Billy's nonverbal. I am his full-time caregiver. And I sat down with Billy, and we talk all the time. And I said, Billy, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do? You know, I'll just quit this job. And we decided that I was going to start, or we were going to start an insurance agency. And we're going to call it I Cared. Because we actually care, truly, truly care about individuals. And we didn't care about selling insurance. We cared about educating people so they can make informed decisions for their families. About 2 months later, I'm looking on social media and a great friend of mine, good friend from the UK, I read that he's got motor neuron disease, which is the equivalent, it's basically ALS.
Yeah.
It's terminally ill and he's been given 2 years to live. And rather than retreating from the world, he puts together a foundation called the Matt Gallagher Foundation. And it's not for himself. It's to raise money and raise awareness for motor neuron disease and ALS. And the money then goes towards helping other families with the same disease and to get them the equipment that they need when they need it. Because it's very, very, very aggressive. I thought to myself, you know what? I want to help. I want to help Matt. I want to show my support. And I also want to show my support for the Matt Gallagher Foundation. So how can I do this? What can I do? And I decided, whatever I do, it's got to be hard. It's got to be really, really tough. So when I was at Purpose Summit the following year, I met this South African and he mentioned to me that he's going to do this race called the Munga, the toughest race on earth. It's 1,150 kilometers over 5 days, riding through the South African Karoo desert, non-stop. You sleep in the dirt. I'm like, I'm going to do that. Now, they call it the toughest race on earth, but I disagree with that. I think the toughest event on earth isn't when you're given a terminal. So I sign up, I pay my money, I train, I rode 8,000 miles in training, and then in November of last year, I flew out to Johannesburg, and I then drove from Johannesburg with my mountain bike to Bloemfontein, and the race started in Bloemfontein, and you basically ride across the desert to Cape Town. And so I got there, race days arrives, and there at the start line there's about 160 other competitors. Off we go. This is it. Game time. This is what you're prepared for. And the next 5 days changed the course of my life. Day 2. For the first day, I rode for 20 hours, slept for 2, got up the next day, or woke up 2 hours later, got back on my bike. I'm riding. It's 115 degrees. There's a 40-mile-an-hour wind into your face. You're constant in this dust, and you can't even see me. You're covered in it. Just blowing in your face. You feel like you're going backwards. It's that hot, and the wind is that strong. And then, as the afternoon came on, I'm looking ahead, and these black clouds form as far as you can see. And then I'm seeing the lightning striking the ground ahead of me. But we're probably talking 10 miles. Yeah. But you've got nowhere to go. There is no cover. There's no shelter. There's no houses, nothing. Just you, your bike, the ground, and the elements. So you carry on riding, and then all of a sudden the temperature starts to fall crazy. So it got down to 45. So we went from 115 degrees down to 45 degrees. So the wind picks up. It starts to hail, rain like I've never seen. And then this storm starts. But you've got nowhere to go, so you just keep riding. And then it's getting worse and worse. And I saw this small rocky outcrop. And I crouched down behind these rocks to take shelter. And it's even though it's only 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the sky is black, it's dark. And then this pickup truck comes from nowhere. And this guy winds this window down. And he said, follow me. Okay. So I get on my bike. I follow him down this trail. Turns off, and there's this little farmhouse. And he probably parks his pickup truck. And then this farmhouse door opens, and there's a lady standing there with a stroller and a baby. And the stroller, just pushing it back and forward. And she says, come in. So I go into their farmhouse. And her name's Christine. The baby's name is Stella. And the farmer's maid, her husband's name is Craig. And they invite a complete stranger into their hut. They feed me. They give me water and coffee. And then Christine says to me, she said, the storm is going to be here till 10 o'clock tonight. They make me a bed. And she said, sleep. And we'll wake you at 10 o'clock tonight. So she does. I wake at 10, I thank them, and off I go again cycling. And this pattern continues with farmers offering me assistance and help. And it renewed my faith in humanity. People giving to you, giving to complete strangers. So on day 4, 2:30 in the morning, I arrive at Saint-Fontaine Farm. And these 2 brothers own the farm. And they give me a cheeseburger, cold. Yeah. Wrapped in foil. Best cheeseburger I've ever eaten in my life. And then I sleep in, they've got this tent, this tent set up at their garden. And I sleep in this tent. I'm wet and cold, but it's okay, it's shelter. So I sleep for 2 hours and I get up the next morning. Well, I get up at 3 in the morning and one of the brothers walks me out to the road. And that's in roadways and trains. It's called the Old Road, but on trail. And he says, look up, Simon. Man, look up. So that's the Milky Way. This is the closest you're ever going to be to the Milky Way in your life right now. And we said our goodbyes and I thanked him. And it's the dark. I mean, it's 3 in the morning. You can't even see your hand in front of you. And I just waited there. And I waited there for 15 minutes, just staring up. And you feel like you can reach your hand up and just touch these stars. And then he comes back because your bike has a GPS tracker. And he said, I saw your hand move. And I thanked him. I said, no, I just wanted to enjoy this. Because the chances are I'm never going to see this again in my life. And off he went. And off I went. Now, I started to get ill, really, really bad. Bad stomach, really, I liked it. And I was getting hot, and it's cold out, and I was starting to sweat, and I was watching my heart rate climb and climb and climb. And I wasn't putting any effort into my cycling. There's no reason for my heart rate to begin to 140, then 150, then 160. And I knew it was all over for me. And then the panic was setting in, and the dread. And I was panicking so badly. I got off my bike, sat in the dirt. I shook the bag out, all my belongings, everything I possibly had. And I laid out my water and whatever food I'd got. And I said, this is it. This is where it's going to end for you, Simon. And out of nowhere, this 4x4 ambulance arrives, part of the event. And he gives me some medicine. And I pack myself up again and off I go. And then he's gone. And I'm no better. And now it's getting warm. The day is getting warm. And when I set off at 5 in the morning from the farm. And I only had 50 kilometers to go. And I need to get to the next checkpoint by noon. So I had all the time in the world to get there. No problem. Very, very bad. And I'm literally, I strip off, but I'm in this state of panic. And I strip, and I'm just sitting in the dirt with my shoes, just my shoes on. And I look, and in the distance, I can see a dust cloud. And then a Munga pickup truck comes, and there's two race organisers. South Africans, they don't get fazed by what they see. I'm sitting there with nothing on other than my bike shoes. And they just look at me. And one of them says, "How are you, Simon?" And they said, "Hey, we'd heard from this nurse that if you mix this Powerade with this Elix, this powder stuff, it's supposed to work wonders." So they mix it up and they hand it to me, and I'm just sit there in the ground, drinking in and talking to them. And half an hour passes. I didn't even realize the passage of time. And they said, "Hey, Simon, you seem a little bit better now. Why don't you do this? Why don't you go on for 15 minutes and we'll come down the trail in 15 minutes. And if we find you, we'll take you with. And if we don't find you, we know you carried on and all's good." So I packed myself up, got dressed, got back on my bike. And he said, "Simon, before you go, you've got to go like the wind, because you're going to struggle to make the cutoff." So I rode like I've never ridden in my life. I felt good, but I had to ride so hard. And I'm getting closer and closer to the checkpoint, and it's in a nature reserve. And as I'm getting close to the nature reserve, I can see the gates, and there are two armed guards with the gates in a Land Rover. And they open up the gates to keep the poachers out, and also to keep. And I said, as I was going through the gates, I said, "How far to the checkpoint?" They said, 2 kilometers. I'm like, can't be, I can't see it. So I race on, I'm following my GPS, and I keep racing, and then all of a sudden I hit this rock, and my bike flies again. And I come down, and I crash on the ground, and I hit my head. And I'm lying there in the dust. And I start to smile. And I said to myself, "It's going to be okay, Simon. It's all going to be okay." And eventually I get up, straighten my handlebars, and I broke my shoe. I've torn the sole off my shoe. And I had to duct tape my shoe back together, get back on my bike and ride. And I make the cutoff 2 seconds to spare. 2 seconds. I've been riding for 4.5 days through the desert, and I make this cutoff by 2 seconds. And this guy comes to me, and he said, "Simon, he's the nature reserve owner. He said, we've been tracking you. And I get off my bike and I walk into the zoo and I can see the gazelles and the springboks just all running around. I started to cry. And I then went back to my bike and they've prepared drinks for my bike, food. I chatted with the game reserve, or sorry, the nature reserve owner. And then off I go. And I roll off for maybe another 10 kilometers. And I'm about to go into the toughest part of this event. I've got to descend down Oberg Pass, which is a 4,000-foot descent. You get to the Tanqua, which is the basin. It's black down there. Nothing grows, nothing lives. It's that hot. And it dawned on me. I wasn't going to make it. I was going to die. Absolutely going to die. So I stopped. And I said to myself, you've already won, boy. And I sat there. And I just waited. And then eventually, pickup truck arrived. And it was one of the Munga pickup trucks. And I got in the back of the pickup bed. And they took me in. Now, you're in the middle of nowhere. It took a day. I was that far away. It took a day to get back to the finish line, half an hour to get back to the finish line. But during that time, I had time to think. And I'm like, what are you going to do, Simon, now? And it came to me. Billy and I are going to buy a farm. And we're going to call it Billy's Farm of Hopes and Dreams. And we're going to give back to other special needs children and adults and caregivers. And when I got to the finish line, I started writing and writing because everything was so raw. And I wrote a book. And it actually comes out this weekend, the Craigslist, and it's called You've Already Won. I started a business called Billy's Farms of Hopes and Dreams. It's a non-profit. The farm is going to have bees, and we're going to give away the honey. It's going to have chickens, and we're going to give away the eggs. We're going to have donkeys. I'd started volunteering at a donkey sanctuary every Friday to learn farm management. And we're going to open that farm together. And we are going to have special needs adults, children, and caregivers. And I stress the caregivers. I've been a caregiver now for 24 years. I've been to some of the darkest places I never thought I was going to come back from. And I know that all caregivers go through the same thoughts that I've had. There's no off switch. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But I've also known, and there's a reason I called the farm Billy's Farm of Hopes and Dreams, because as a caregiver, caring for someone you love 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's two things that happen. You lose hope and you stop dreaming. And I'm determined to spend the rest of my life putting hope and dreams back in the hearts.
And even as we've talked before, I think the problem with our society is men, strong men, never allow society to see them for who they truly are, for what they're going through. And we lie to the world because we're supposed to be okay. And it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be able to share that story, as profoundly as we would share our ego,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's cool. And I think part of the goal here also is to get people to pull into a story, a moment, and then walk away with some thinking to do, as it relates to them in lives. I know a couple of questions, and just really follow up on the moments, when you're laying there, hunkered in, seeking shelter. What's going through your head as it pertains to your life? Like, you're in the storm. Yep. Yep. But you were always in a storm. You walked into this race in a storm, through, drinking and the divorce or the impending divorce and then life, when all your kid was born.
Yep. I would say I thought the 8,000 miles I put in training was the preparation for the Munga. And I really thought that. But it wasn't. It was the 23 years prior to me arriving there that prepared me for the Munga. The one thing I didn't mention, I never finished the Munga. Mm. The Munga is 1,150 kilometers. I only rode 852 kilometers. But my Munga ended exactly where it needed to. Exactly. And it was the greatest finish ever in my life because I had won. Finally, I had won. And I was worthy. And now it prepared me finally for my next chapter. And it's a chapter of purpose, but a purpose far greater than me. Truly. I mean, I am so excited for this next chapter. And it's a chapter of giving back to others, to other Simon Dysons out there, and to other Billy Dysons, and to give them hope to go on for one more day. One more day. That's it. Can I get you to continue for one more day? Because I didn't think I ever could. So, life, if we actually look at it, it does give us this opportunity to give to others. And it's quite beautiful. And I never thought I would say it's quite beautiful. And it's taken 55 years for me to say it's quite beautiful. It truly is.
It's kind of cool because, in our conversations, you talk about the gratitude of waking up and being alive.
Absolutely.
But I think in this moment, I'm like, oh, wow, that's why he says it, because he actually really means it.
Absolutely.
And when you think about what I think we as men would assume is failure, but it's really tribulations and triumph. It's life. How do you, when you juxtapose your wins professionally, and you talk about trying to do one more great thing and one more achievement to cover up for what you're going through, when do you suggest we start being real about our lives, being honest, and just face what we have to face to move on?
As soon as we possibly can in life, truly. But the problem is, and I pondered this, the problem is you have to go through so much pain before you can come to that realization. So I had the conversation with my eldest son. I said, you haven't gone through enough pain yet to realize. It's the unfortunate. It's like we were talking earlier. It's only through pain that you come to certain realizations of what's important in life. So it's like, have you personally gone? I wish everyone could fast forward and have this big injection of pain, and now you can start to make a difference in your life and in others. But so I also forgot to mention, when I got to South Africa and we had this race review the day before, the race organizer, Jack Black, he said, we changed the name disorder. He said, it was once called the toughest event on earth, and we've now changed it to your journey, your story. And at first, I was really disappointed because I enjoyed telling people, this is the toughest race yet. But afterwards, it was my journey and it became my story. But what I would say to others is, this is your journey and this is your story. We all have a story to tell. Let's just learn from it.
And the thing about it is like, well, you got one chance though out of two. You know, and I think, even like, I talking to some friends and working through, what is trauma? What is, childhood trauma in general? And I feel like, at times we're hanging on to this past because we're trying to reconcile this past. But what it's doing, it is robbing us of our now and potentially our future. And the cool thing that I see in your story, and I think where people can actually relate, is this point which you're humbled to, and you're forced to start seeing, finishing doesn't define me. No, I come this far and that's good enough.
It doesn't. Yeah. It really doesn't, but I think it does. And it's not until, because again, though, think about the way we've been raised. It's about winning.
Yeah.
Winning the race, whatever it may be, winning, the pursuit on something. And you can only actually get there and celebrate the win, the finish. But it's not the finish that matters. It's what you learn along the process. And then what can you, and this to me, in my view, is what's important about life. What can you do for other people? It's not about you. I don't believe that we were put on this earth to serve ourselves. I did. It's not about serving us. It's about how can I help somebody else, no matter how big or small. And that may only be simply saying good morning to somebody.
Yeah.
Hello. Simple gestures, yet so important. So, to me, it's about serving others, truly serving others.
So you mentioned this hypothetical injection of pain. Yeah, if you get this injection of pain, vaccine, to adversity, you get it over with. What would you tell young this side Nick Dyson about life and what to expect?
Prepare for disappointment too. But get up, learn from it too, and make a positive impact the next day. You don't quit a job that pays you $250,000 a year. You picture this retirement, the houses, the cars, the boats, the travel, not one bit at all. This is my retirement. My retirement is truly giving. And so I would tell me, I'd say, Simon, help from tomorrow. You know what? That's where the wealth is. That's where the riches are. They truly are. They're not in paycheck. Your children don't care how much money you've got in your bank account. They don't care about how much time you spend with them.
Yeah.
I know the money.
One of the coolest things, I think even the most liberating things that you ever said to me was, we talk about kids in this rat race of business and entrepreneurship. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know. I feel like I'm failing them because I'm so busy and I feel this guilt. And it was cool because you said, that what you got, because you're right where you need to be. And then compared it to where you went through it, you said, I didn't get that feeling until I was this old. Did you have 55? And then you said, you're 18 years early. And now it was like this huge, just like, oh, okay. My oldest is 10, my youngest is 6, and it's beautiful, right on time. It's beautiful. Yeah. So, yeah, no. And I appreciate that. I carry that every day. And I think about that every day. And especially now where I'm making very intentional time to spend with them. And realistically, I'm not as ambitious anymore when it comes to it. It's like, this is good. This is fine. I'm here. I'm now. I'm present. I can tell you what color eyes they have and when they change and the structurals, the teeth, all of it, you know, because I see it every day now because of our presence.
Live your dash. It's a poem. And I have it on my arm specifically because when I clean my teeth, I see it. And it's a reminder to myself. And what this poem is, it was written by Linda Ellis, is a date of birth, is a date when you're born, and there's a date when you die. And in between those two dates, there's a dash. And that dash is representative of your life and how you live into it. And when your eulogy is being read, you're going to be proud of the things that are said of how you've lived your dash. I tried desperately to live. Remember that every single day. Bring that dash. It's your life.
Yeah.
And it'd be gone in a flash.
Yeah. In a dash. You shiv it up.
Oh, wow. Jeez. So the farm.
Yes. You know, where do we have a nonprofit, you know, we're raising funds.
Yes.
Do you have a location?
Not yet. There's many that I'm looking at. So, the book comes out on Saturday. This Saturday coming, and all the proceeds from the book go to the nonprofit. So, so this is not self-serving in any way. This is, I mean, I want the book to absolutely sell, according to be a New York bestseller, and not for Simon Dyson, but for the farm. And then what the farm is then going to do. And it's not a zoo. We're not creating a zoo here. This is a very boutique. And I don't mean snobby, but I mean, if I only see one caregiver, but I can change that person's life, then you know what? It's worth everything. It's worth every hour, it's worth my whole life to just save that one person and to change their whole trajectory. So all the proceeds from the book go to the farm. What's really driving me here is in the state of Michigan, special needs children go to school until they're 26. Now, depending on their disability or the extent of their disabilities, some children, some special needs adults, life ends when they finish school. Billy's life will end. There are no programs for him. So literally every day, for me, this drives me. I take a picture of Billy every day before he gets on the bus when we're waiting outside. I take a picture of him when he gets on the bus. When he gets off the bus. But then when that bus is going away, I take a picture of the back of the bus. Because there is one day coming very quickly when that bus will never come again. And that drives me. Not for Billy's situation, but for all others. Because there are caregivers out there that need the school, they need the respite. It's going to end, and I can't allow it to end for other people. I can't.
Can you talk a little bit about when that bus ends?
Yep.
How this focal point benefits Billy's life, benefits your life, and maybe the new purpose of what you guys are doing. Because
People have said to me, well, why don't you go to bed later? Well, we still get up at 3 a.m. So, but when we get up, there's a routine. Billy gets a card, this plastic, because he's nonverbal, it's this plastic or laminated card, and he'll point to things.
yeah,
And it's, I want, and he points to the school bus, and then he points to his teacher, and then his 5 classmates. So then we wait and wait and wait until 7 o'clock rolls round, and we get the bus. And what I've learned, that is structure in his life, and it's also purpose.
yeah,
Right? It's going to end. I'm not going to let it end. It has to continue. So far, it's going to become the structure. The farm is going to be the purpose. I believe everybody needs a reason to get up in the morning. And that reason is purpose driven. What am I getting up for? Well, I'm getting up because we're going to go and collect the eggs. I'm getting up because we're going to go and deliver the eggs. But I'm not just doing this to Billy. There'll be other special adults there. Collectively, this is what we're doing. And you know what? So when they need a reason to get up, because guess what? We're going to the farm, and this is what we're going to do. And we're going to deliver the eggs, and we're going to give them away for free. And I don't care if we have 100 eggs and they smash 50 of them. Doesn't matter. Good, smash them. It doesn't matter. Let's deliver whatever we've got anyway. Then we're going to give the honey away. But whilst this is going on, and this is where the donkeys come in, I go to this donkey sanctuary. They are the most loving, peaceful, soulful animals. They put their head against yours. I leave there so much better. I walk these donkeys every Friday. So the caregivers separate from the special needs adults. They can go to the barn. They can take a donkey for a walk. They can sit down in a field under a tree. The donkeys lie down with you. And if they want to cry, just cry. But as a caregiver, what I've learned over the years is you're not seeing it. People look at you, but they don't see you. They don't look into your vacant eyes. And when those caregivers come back to the barn, they will know they're savior. They will know they are part of this farm. This farm is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those gates are always open for them. So it serves so many purposes. But I'm doing this, I'm creating this from what I've learned, from my darkest moments, guys. And okay, and what I've experienced, what would help Simon Dyson? How can I help me? And how can I help Billy? And I'm not talking about self-serving us. So with that knowledge, this is how we, Billy and I, intend to help all the other Billies and all the other Simon Dysons that come through our games.
And it's so operationally, it is more of a day program.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yes. And who knows, it may evolve. But to start with, it's most certainly a day program. It's not a zoo. This is not a bus arrives and because this is about quality, not quantity. If I reference often the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, and I think I'm right in saying, build it and they will come. So we're going to build it first. And it's funny when I reach out for grants, and I hate doing it because there's a question that so many corporations ask, how many people are you going to serve? Before we agree to give you a penny, we want to know. And when I put one, guess what? They write back and say, you're not a real good fit for it. And I'm like, you know what? We're not. I spent the longest time ever in my life. I wrote a book, but the longest thing I've ever toiled over was writing our mission statement. I spent the whole week doing it because I'm going to die. And when I die, I want that mission statement to be carried forward on. And remember, this is our purpose. We're not going to sell our souls to some corporation to want to turn it into a theme park. If we serve one person this whole year, and that person comes back every week, but we change their life, we will celebrate that. And then one may turn into two.
And there will.
It will. I know it will. But you know what? There's not going to be a fanfare. We're not going to cut a ribbon. The gates are open. And we're just going to wait. And wait.
I love the enthusiasm. And I think great businesses, great opportunities, have a story. Yours is magnificent. But the purpose behind it is the most compelling reason and part of it, because you've lived it.
Yeah.
It's a niche that needs Man, we see caregivers every day. Yep. And caregivers get old. They don't, and, what do you do when you have an adult kid and you're 70 years old, and you need a knee replacement back and things like that. So in the spectrums, there's so many needs for this.
Absolutely. Like from an early age, I vowed Billy's never going to go in a home. And I didn't even know what that meant. When I set those words to myself, all those years ago, I didn't know what that statement meant. He's never going to go in a home. I'm going to create the home. And I'm also going to create the vision and the mission behind it. That has to remain. And guess what? I will die a happy man knowing I've created it. And now everybody is going to follow that mission statement, that vision from the top down of the organization.
When you talk about the 23 years that prepared you for this race, the toughest race, I look at even spirituality as my race, right? You've won the race, to run the race. And I think sometimes I see people, they run to win, they run for the medal, and that's what we're programming in society. But I think you take the process and everything that's happened, and you're becoming a servant leader and looking for ways to help people that maybe are just starting that journey. And the reality is, for you, haven't had the corporate spaces and the jobs, is there a nonprofit arm of this that helps with costing? Is it a free service?
It's free.
Okay.
Absolutely free.
Yeah.
Sorry. The gates are always open. Yeah. 24/7. Completely free.
Okay.
No paperwork other than waiver, probably on the insurance cover. You will say, there is some paperwork side, yeah, but no, 100% free.
Yeah.
And I'm even thinking, you know what, you can't even get there. I'm going to arrange transportation.
Yeah.
Because again, it's one person. It's a caregiver and they're loved, special needs, adult, child. I am going to get them there. They are going to experience this. And I'm going to make this the best experience I possibly can ever make. And again, it can't be this Zoom-like environment, because guess what? You'll get lost in the crowd and you won't feel seen. You will just be a blur. And that, it can't be that. It has to be everybody arrives and they feel part of the family. This is why I'm calling it boutique. It's not boutique because it's snobby, right? It's personal. I will give you as much or as little as you need to have the greatest experience of your life that I can give. I'm learning this as I go.
Yeah.
I go to this farm every Friday to learn because I can't wait. I can't just say, oh, I've got the money. Now let's buy the farm. Well, that's going to be a disaster, right? So I'm learning. I'm learning frantically, and I'm soaking everything up like a sponge, including, planting. What are we going to grow? What is the easiest thing to Simon Dyson to grow that he's not going to mess on? Because I want to give it away. This is a learning process. I would say that I will have the farm purchased within the next year. It has to happen within the next year. I really think early spring is my goal. 20 acres is what the size I'm looking at. And then I'm starting to look at water supply. How are we going to power this farm? Are we going to have solar power as well? So there's so many things I'm looking into, but because I would like it to be as self-sufficient as possible as well. And I really want it to be a model farm for the environment, and also in terms of what we grow, what we can give away, and what people want. What do people truly want? What is a product that they really want? So I've got this is a moving target. I'm constantly working on it, and it really is. It's consuming my every moment. And I jump out of bed every day, excited with what am I going to do today? How am I going to make it happen? And how are we going to make this farm just that bit closer for reality?
Thank you so much, Kiki, and for your time. Appreciate you. And I think what I'm most excited about in this segment is just the story, the vulnerability, the honesty, the transparency. And it's really cool for me, humbling, one, to call you friend, but just we partner with a lot of people as far as like internships in schools.
So yeah, and that's all these things are going from my mind in terms of, you know, if somebody genuinely has passion, right? I want to create that opportunity for somebody that genuinely has a passion to the not just to tick a box.
Yeah, no. Every day, man. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.